What's your favorite scary movie?
Be like, I'm dying.
If some guy came up to me and said, "Hey, they guys, I'm like, it's over and done. We're married now."
Someone in the movie, so I'm like, kiss. But
Oh God, what a sea of humanity.
And we're here.
Yeah, shout out to whoever made those splice samples. That thing turned out all right.
It's pretty good. It's pretty good.
Saxophones are always good, though.
Saxophones.
I don't hear saxophones and think, oh, gross, ever.
No. I think as I've gotten older, too, I've only appreciated saxophones more. And maybe that's how you feel, too.
Yeah, I tried to do the reed. You know, like it's I feel like I've not struggled with like mouthpieces and guitar, piano, even drums. I can do a little bit. Man, I couldn't even make the sound like that you're supposed to do with the reed.
No, that's why I was a trumpet player. You just blow. Trumpet, brass. We got brass, you know, you got to
brass
stick together.
Boys.
The Brass Boys. Changing it. Just call us the Brass Boys, baby.
From now on.
Brass Boys. What you gonna do? What you gonna do when they come for you? You're becoming the Brass Boy in my... I got you.
Forever.
Brass Boy. Brass Boy 1, Brass Boy 2. Well, welcome in, everybody, as I change names here, to 52/1994, where we talk about movies from the year 1994. It's a live movie conversation podcast. My name's Cody. I'm joined by my co-host this week, Steven. If this is your first time joining us, welcome in. We do this every week, 52 times a year, sometimes even more than that. And we talk about these movies from one year, 1994. Not just that. We'll, next year we'll do 95 and so on and so forth. And then we break them down.
I have Ace Ventura hair, then Spencer has Kenny G hair.
Ooh, both very 90s references that we're talking about here too.
Saxophone too, tie it in.
Saxophone. Oh yeah. That's very nice. Your hair looks very nice.
It's getting gray.
Well, he is Kenny G, and I'm joined by Ace Ventura, and we're talking about movies. We're talking about action movies. We've been talking about action movies all month. This is our last action movie with the last action hero, Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Himself.
Mr. Last Action Hero himself. We're talking about this. This is our final one. I think, honestly, out of the 5, maybe save the best for last. We'll see. We'll get into it. And I'll tell you next month's category and what we're going to be talking about next month at the end. Anyway, welcome in. We love having you here. Join us in the chat. If you're not following, drop a follow, and then you can join us in the chat after some, ad time and some I think a 10-minute waiting period, whatever. But we just want to make sure you're sticking around. But join us in the chat. Tell us what you think about today's movie, which is True Lies, starring Arnold Schwarzenegger. Steven, had you ever seen this movie before?
No, never seen it. I don't think, it's one of those that may have been on TV. It seems like maybe one of those that was on TV. And I just never watched any of it. I don't recall seeing any of this, but I don't know if that was because my parents were trying to keep me away from it. They knew there's a lot of, violence and sex, and they were trying to keep me away from such terrible things.
Look at you now.
I know, and now I'm still screwed.
You're covered in violence and sex. Look at you.
I basically breathe violence and sex. That's all I do.
No, you're right. This movie was on TV a lot, and that's the only way I saw it. And when I saw it on TV, I didn't have cable at the time, but I saw edited versions of it. I never saw.
I was
the
about to
rated
say
R
it had
version.
to be condensed, right?
Oh
This
yeah.
was-
Oh yeah.
You know, we'll talk about it a lot, I'm sure, but like that was one of the things that surprised me is I thought I was like, and you can speak to this better than I can because I would say in the like action genre of films, I don't have a lot of knowledge. So like, are they typically this long?
No,
Like, is
I don't think so.
Like if I cut Rambo on, I'm expecting a solid 90 minutes and that's about it, you know?
Yeah.
What
What does this come in at?
Man, it felt forever.
It's 2 hours and 21 minutes. So
That's a fucking Leo DiCaprio movie, man. Like, I didn't know what I was getting into. Several
yeah.
things, I thought the movie was coming to a close. And it just kept going. So
It does that. I think Terminator 2 is longer than this movie, which is another James Cameron one. But like,
yeah,
it
I think
is.
that's his thing too, right? He just makes long movies.
James Cameron just makes long movies. He's done Aliens, Terminator 2.
Like he's like, hey,
Titanic.
I need 100 million, and I'm gonna make it 2.5 hours long. Fuck you, studio. You know, like
Avatar, which is just a bunch of just blue people, and you watch that for 3 hours, and it's just like a headache after you're done.
And they've got those coming like the Star Wars.
Oh yeah,
they've got one next year, 2029.
They've got those all planned out.
Yeah.
But they still. The one thing about James Cameron is that no matter what he puts out, it does not flop. As stupid as it could be. Like, I remember after Avatar was out for years, people were like, oh, that movie wasn't that good. Avatar 2, not really going to see that movie, anything like that. And then it just goes out and shatters records again. Like, he does not flop.
Not to get too sidetracked from True Lies, because we got plenty to talk about on this movie alone. But Avatar was one of those movies that, like, I heard all kinds of things about. I just missed it in the theater, and I didn't see it forever. You know, it's just one of those ones that I missed, and I finally saw it and was like, this is one of the movies that holds up, in my opinion, to everything I heard. Like, I can understand why people don't like it, but clearly visually stunning, and a great story. Like, I still need to see it. I'm running on the same schedule for the second one. Still haven't seen it, but my wife has. She liked it. I would like to watch it. You know, it's not like I'm anti-Avatar. It's just definitely really cool what he's done with that world, because I think, you know, like I mentioned Star Wars, but it's like he's creating a full-blown world there. You know, it's the Avengers and.
It's beautiful, and like the technology that he uses, that's another thing that he's always done throughout his career. James Cameron, kind of throw him as he's like the number one person that does this. It's like, I'm going to take something and then I'm going to find out the technology to make it better. And
if I'm not at the bottom of the ocean checking out the actual Titanic, I'm going to be using like state-of-the-art visual technology to create the, like, man, God, they figured out water in Avatar like maybe I've never seen in anything else.
Yeah.
Like, nail the water in a real kind of realistic way, you know. I think everybody's gotten there now, but like back then, when did the first Avatar come out?
2009, something like that.
I mean, for back then, it still holds up visually now, and to think that it came from back then is crazy. So yeah, James Cameron, cool dude.
Cool dude.
Cool dude.
Let's go ahead and let's
up.
He's a cool dude. All right, Brass Boy number 2. We're going to talk about this movie. Let's introduce it a little bit and give some details about it. So we're talking about the movie True Lies. This movie came out July 15th, 1994. So we're coming up on the anniversary here. It was directed by James Cameron. It was written by James Cameron, and it was based on a 1991 French comedy film called La Totale. And he just took basically the idea about it, because I think that one was like a much funnier movie and was like, I can do that. He said, I can do that. And I'm going to make it more action packed. And I'm going to get my buddy in on this. Arnold.
And not to like get into like the fun facts too much, but it seems like at the time, Arnold Schwarzenegger just came up to James Cameron and was like, hey, I want to play a James Bond in a James Bond movie. And he was like, oh, cool. Yeah, like I heard about this French film. Let's do it.
Yeah. I've got you, man. We're good.
Yeah.
And
I
crazy.
had an idea.
Yeah. And jumping into fun facts too a little bit, we're talking about the writing of this. There were several writers that were brought in, comic writers, to come in and make this movie funnier. And James Cameron's like, you guys aren't funny at all. I'll just write this stuff. And I guess like only two jokes. Yeah, 2 jokes are what he kept. And one of them was the "you're fired" line. Basically, he hired the people that did Batman and Robin lines for Mr. Freeze and was like, yeah you guys aren't funny. Let's make this better.
Which I think clearly we read the same thing, right? And when I saw that he kept 2 jokes and it only said "you're fired" was one of them, I immediately thought surely the other one's "cool off."
Yeah.
Right? When he sticks his head in the toilet.
That's gotta be it.
That's gotta be it. And also, it's kind of clear why they got fired, right?
Yeah. Those aren't great jokes. Not great.
Those were the best too.
And I think like just with some of the casting here, you get a lot of comedy just from the actors, and one of those, and let's go ahead and mention the cast. So Arnold Schwarzenegger, we've already talked about, plays Agent Harry Tasker. Jamie Lee Curtis as Helen Tasker, his wife. Tom Arnold in this as Albert Gibson or Gibbs. Bill Paxton's in here as Simon. Tia Carrera as Juno Skinner. Art Malik as Salim Abu Aziz. Eliza Dushku as Dana Tasker. Grant Heslov as Faisal, and Charlton Heston is in this movie for a brief, for 5 minutes as Spencer Trilby. Just randomly shows up.
I can't wait to talk about it. I can't wait.
All right, the synopsis of this movie. If you are watching and you haven't watched this movie before, let me give you a synopsis. So, secretly a spy, but thought by his family to be a dull salesman, Harry Tasker is tracking down nuclear missiles in the possession of Islamic jihadist Aziz. Yep, they go ahead and talk about Islamic jihadist Aziz here. Harry's mission is complicated when he realizes his neglected wife, Helen, is contemplating an affair with Simon, a used car salesman who claims he's a spy. When Aziz kidnaps Harry and Helen, the secret agent must save the world and patch up his marriage at the same time. This movie had a budget, Stephen already mentioned, of $100 million. One of the most expensive movie, I think it was at the time, the most expensive movie that had been made for $100 million. And it brought in $378.9 million. It was the number 3 movie this year.
Did you see that this was like part of like a big deal for James Cameron?
Oh, I didn't read that.
That it was like a part of a 10 or 12 project deal, and they really wanted to come. This was the first one. They wanted to come out of the gate swinging, and I think his limit was originally set at like 75 million, and they ended up kind of breaking the record. And I think that was their way of like promoting. Mm-hmm. They ended up getting into being like, this is the most expensive movie ever made. So. Yeah, it was a part of a deal for James Cameron, I guess, with like Warner Brothers or Universal, something like that.
It says Universal. I want to say it was Universal. Wait, no. 20th Century Fox is what it says now.
Okay.
So, which makes sense. I think all of his other movies end up being Fox movies, even going up to Avatar, which gets acquired by Disney and all this other stuff. So
I just thought it was super interesting because I didn't know. That's one of the first times I've ever seen that. That's like, signing an athlete on for another 5 years. Mm-hmm. Like I didn't know that they did directors like that.
Yeah. So they used to, that's how they used to do it in the old days too. Like early days of Hollywood, you would sign on for 5 pictures and like you were stuck there. And like, that's just like even the actors and stuff. Yeah.
Man, I didn't know that. That's crazy. Mm-hmm. So like Tarantino hasn't been there, right?
Mm.
Like he's not.
No, he was with Miramax forever, and then once Harvey Weinstein did his stuff, like he got
So
away.
you
from
said
Miramax.
actors will do that too, so like they can only release under a certain studio.
Yeah, there's a lot of like, I'll do one for you, and you let me do what I want, that kind of thing. So it's like one for me, one for you.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
So the only there, I don't know it too well, but like back in the old days, they used to do it, and you couldn't work for other studios. So they would like limit you. So if James Cameron was locked in at Fox, he couldn't go to Universal and do another movie. He could only do Fox movies, even if like they wanted to do a movie that he wanted to do. He could. Same thing with actors and stuff. You couldn't like get out of your contract.
So probably there was a time when like Charlie Day, they were like FX had to work out a deal with the studio for Horrible Bosses for him to do that while still doing It's Always Sunny.
Yeah.
Oh, man, I never thought of that. I have never thought about that before.
Yeah, and so that's how it is nowadays. Like they can do it, but they have to work within their schedules and everything and make sure that they can do it. Back in the day, Charlie Day wouldn't have ever been able to like go on and do anything else. So it's interesting.
Yeah, I think James Cameron is quite the up and comer right now.
Yeah, sure. I think he was a one and done. He's True Lies came out, one hit wonder, never did anything ever again.
It is cool to see how many of the actors and actresses and like, you know, I did read something horrifying, but I also saw that most of the main actors were like, this was one of my best acting experiences. Yeah. It just seemed like the child actor got the raw end of the deal.
Yeah, she did. And
let's talk about the fun part.
Later. Yeah, let's
get into the fun first.
All right, so this movie had a 70% on Rotten Tomatoes, a 7.3 out of 10 on IMDb, and a 3.6 on Letterboxd, so all roughly around the same. Roger Ebert gave this 3 out of 4 stars. He said, True Lies doesn't rank as high as Terminator 2 and Total Recall among Schwarzenegger's action epics for a couple of reasons. The unconvincing interlude where the hero suspects adultery and the perfunctory nature of the plot. Both earlier titles were tighter, more absorbing stories, but on the basis of stunts, special effects, and pure action, it delivers sensationally. So that was a positive one, but I did agree a little bit with some of his takes there, so I did want to mention that. Desson Thomas, who we brought up many times of the Washington Post, said the mixture of comedy and super agent spectacle works well at first, but when Schwarzenegger's family and working worlds link up in an inevitable development, the plot becomes increasingly ridiculous and overwrought. So a couple legacy things I just want to mention here, usually about like awards or franchises or anything like this. So this movie was nominated for Best Visual Effects. I'll go ahead and jump into a fun fact here. That James Cameron this is the only movie that he's been nominated for Best Visual Effects and lost. Anytime he puts out a movie, he wins this award. So
who'd he lose to?
I think Speed. Is that right? It's Forrest Gump. I'm almost positive it's Forrest Gump. Because of all the I don't know.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So I think he did lose to Forrest Gump on this one. Gump took a few awards that people were not as happy about. So Forrest Gump. I just looked. Jamie Lee Curtis was nominated and won the Golden Globe for Best Actress in a Comedy or Musical. And then they did try and revamp this movie. There was like a sequel in the works for a little while, and that didn't happen, which would have been a really cool and easy thing for them to just jump on. But they didn't do it. And then there was a bad TV show, I think, that came out like within the last couple of years, and it just didn't really quite catch on. I think it lasted a season.
They did make a sequel called Mr. and Mrs. Smith.
Oh, yeah. You're right. You're absolutely right. That is the sequel.
Which I didn't even think about as a pairing. So that's
that was my first one in my pairings. That's okay. I don't care. I don't care at all. So other than that, is there anything you want to add to anything before we jump into like the scenes and stuff?
No, I think we've hit everything with James Cameron. Like I didn't realize before this, and like this is one of the things I love about your stream is that like when I think James Cameron, I think Titanic and Avatar.
Yeah.
I think I knew because of our conversation last year about Last Action Hero, or was that earlier this year?
That was last year. Yeah.
Yeah, that I knew he was involved in that one, but like I didn't know he was. I'm always learning, and to know that he made Piranha 2.
Piranha 2, yeah, baby.
And those Terminator movies, it was just like, oh, okay, so his career goes even deeper than I thought it did. So yeah, I was definitely excited to watch this for sure.
Yeah, and it's easy to think about like James Cameron and think about like Avatar and all those things because he honestly hasn't directed that many movies. We could go through it as quick: Piranha 2, Terminators, Aliens, The Abyss, Terminator 2, True Lies, Titanic, Avatar, The Way of Water. The only things this man has directed. And
he was just so all over the news for the Titanic stuff. And
yeah.
like then being down there in the ocean, like I swear he was just like on Good Morning America and like he was just everywhere at a time. Yeah. And funny that when that thing collapsed, the submarine collapsed in the ocean recently, I remember seeing James Cameron on the news again, being like, this is probably how it happened because he's like an expert in submarine.
Well, do you remember when the BP spill in the Gulf?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he was one of the guys that was like, "Hey, I know how to fix this if you guys just listen to me." And he was actually like, "Here you go. This is what you." And what they ended up doing was a version of what James Cameron had suggested they do, but they didn't listen to him in the first place. So, and he had given it to him like a couple months before they had even attempted it. It was like,
someone should make a movie about that.
Yeah, James Cameron should just, maybe listen to James Cameron. He knows what he's talking about. I don't want to praise the guy too much. He is pretty great, though. I like James Cameron. He's a fascinating human being. I don't know if he has I don't know him personally, obviously. I don't know his personal life. I do know he was, married to famous director Catherine Bigelow for a little while, who's most famous for like Point Break and the Hurt Locker, stuff like that. So kind of awesome.
Let's just go ahead and put a bookmark here as I'd like to take the claim to fame of 27 minutes in before we even start discussing the movie. So I want to take that claim to fame and also apologize.
Well, there's a lot to talk about with this movie, and it's so good and actually so many great scenes in here, even if they are just great scenes and maybe don't flow as well together as they should, but just a lot of good moments in this movie and some weird ones too. So let's go ahead and start. We'll start with the opening action scene, which takes place in Switzerland. I'll go ahead because I had already talked to Steven previously. We said we're just going to start here. So it starts off just like a Bond movie would, or any Mission Impossible movie. There's always that first mission that's going on.
I just feel like you get everything you've signed up for immediately, right? Mm-hmm. Like with this opening sequence alone. And I also read, like not to go back to him again, that like it was so cold that they didn't get to do a lot of what James Cameron wanted to do. And it's like I read that and was like, what'd you leave out?
Yeah.
Because like we've got, my notes are this, and we can fly through just with the opening scene. He's a scuba diver. He's an underwater welder, like immediately. He's scuba diving and he's welding underwater. Two specialties, right? You got to go through different trainings for both of these things.
And it's in freezing water too.
Freezing water and weird ice. Right?
Definitely weird ice.
Weird ice. The weirdest like paper ice I've ever seen. So cool. Immediately they're establishing almost like this is serious, but only so serious.
Yeah.
Right? They're just like giving us that teeter-totter act of comedy and action that make a movie like this great. Mm-hmm. So weird ice, nobody notices. They got spotlights, they got dogs. Tons of dudes out. Tons of dudes. And he's just coming up out of the ice with a bag and everything. Like, the dog, man, like I step out on my front porch and my neighbor's dogs are like, I mean, you're telling me one of those dogs wouldn't catch this guy coming out of the weird ice. And
The weird.
nobody notices. He takes the wetsuit off, tucks underneath, fresh as could be.
Oh yeah, it's freshly ironed, pressed, like it looks.
And he's got cologne.
Oh
he's
yeah,
got
I
cologne.
forgot the cologne. He needs
my
the cologne.
God, man. Like we're not past the credits yet.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll tell you. I'm pretty sure, like you get deep in before the credits end. So he's scuba diving. He's underwater welding. Nobody notices him, even though he's Arnold Schwarzenegger. He's got a tux underneath. He's got cologne ready with C4 ready to detonate. And now he's ready to go into the party.
Yes. The ice, I would say, looks just like the ice from Muppet Christmas Carol that Rizzo falls in. It's the same ice.
In the barrel.
Yeah. Same ice. It's the same
I
ice.
borrowed some from the Muppet Christmas Carol.
Hey guys, can we use some of your ice?
Man, that ice looks great. Can we use some of that?
Rizzo did not appear in this movie. They asked him. He had other things going on. Are we both drinking Modelo right now?
I hope so.
I'm drinking Modelo. It was in honor of you. They're not sponsored by anybody.
Sponsor us, cowards. Go ahead and sponsor us.
I bet you won't.
Cowards.
I bet you won't.
I bet you won't sponsor us.
They won't sponsor us after we get to the quote section.
He walks into the party and he's immediately speaking French to the chef. He's like, what is this shit? Get it out of here. And then one thing that I really appreciated was that my subtitles, I don't know if this did this for you. I was watching it on Hulu. When he first spoke Arabic, it said perfect Arabic.
Oh, I didn't read it say perfect Arabic. It just said speaking Arabic to us.
It didn't say speaking Arabic. It said speaking perfect Arabic.
So Spencer's saying, I bet Arnold does speak a lot of languages, or languages, to be honest. So Spencer, find out how many languages he speaks.
Man. And we're immediately finding out that the lady of the hour, the lady in the room who's he's got her attention immediately because he's, a handsome dancer.
They tango it up. Tia Carrere. What's your first experience with Tia Carrere?
Meh.
No?
Yeah, man.
Were you not a Wayne's World person?
I was, but if we're gonna talk about, A or B, apples or oranges, Jamie Lee is doing it way more for me in this one.
That was actually going to be my that section of the pod.
We'll get there.
We'll fight. Okay.
Yeah, so he's dancing, he's scuba diving, he's underwater welding, he's speaking foreign languages. He is James Bond.
He is James Bond. But it's like a funny James Bond. A funnier.
Yeah, he's 008.
Yes. Because you get this in a James Bond film. You get Bond being very cheeky. So this is essentially a James Bond film, except that this James Bond has a separate life at home. He's not James Bond always. He's got a wife and kid, and his counterparts are even Tom Arnold is his guy in the van. Who we haven't even talked about at this point, who's continually in his ear the whole time, just saying hey man, get the hell out of there, ditch the bitch. They say bitch so many times in this movie. Man,
in a way that it's I understand why people were like, hey, what was that?
Every time I hear the word bitch in this movie, I cringe a little bit because the way they say it, but it makes me laugh because it's very funny.
It's ooh, you can't say it like that anymore.
Yeah, I don't know why, but the way he just said bitch, Tom Arnold says bitch, just in the worst way ever.
They say psychotic bitch and psychopathic bitch and just the delivery of it several times. I was like, oh God.
None of that passes the test in 2024. None of that does. It gets cleaned up a lot.
Yeah.
But Tom Arnold's right. Spencer's right.
Amazing.
Tom Arnold crushes in this movie.
Amazing.
He's great. And we haven't even talked about his other skills in this scene yet. So I'll let you continue. What else does Arnold do?
Arnold, oh yeah, so we haven't even gotten to him. Like, he keeps his composure. He gets, his buddies the files that they need from the computer. He's maybe speaking, it's funny. I feel like it got to the part where he's walking out and the guy is speaking German to him, which I felt was like, isn't he Austrian? Or
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like the language you would expect him to be the most familiar with. He was like ignoring. And then he does, the blow it up, run away.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And we get our first, like, to me, when it comes to, like, if I was making an action movie and we were going to, layer in some comedy, like, there's got to be a bar of, like, how crazy we're going to get. And to me, the first thing that set the bar of, like, if I wasn't going to say, what sequence to start with, it would be the scene where he hits the dogs' heads together. It's like, that sets a bar right there. That one's like, hey, we're going to take this to like, when he's full sprint and just is like, huh, boom. and those dogs, and pop right back up.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Oh, we're not fucking with him. It's like the dogs have a moment of like, holy shit, that was Arnold Schwarzenegger.
He knows he's such a powerful human being, but he knows just the right amount to crush a dog's head together that is only going to make them, stunned for a second.
Absolutely incredible. Like, really was the kind of comedy action balance where I was like, oh, so that's just where we're starting out. Like, that was the first thing that was like, oh, okay. So, it makes sense that we get to the ending we do after setting the precedent with Dog Smash.
Mm-hmm. And then we get into his
sequence right after that. Yeah.
I was about to say, then we get into his next skill of skiing.
And can't be shot.
And can't be shot at all.
He does not miss and cannot be shot.
And he ends up right down on the road where he meets Tom Arnold and Faisal in the van. Like,
but before he gets there, we get the backward slide.
Incredible.
We get the backward slide. He's shooting people off of skis, off of snowmobiles. I mean, we get the full action explosions, snowmobiles hitting trees. And it's clearly like not Arnold Schwarzenegger running down the hill. This is the first time that there's clearly a stunt man. Like, I feel like in Family Guy, I've seen them make fun of like Stewie doing a stunt, and it's clearly a stunt man. And it was like, oh, this is what they're making fun of.
Yeah.
Because,
and you can tell that now because of, our technology, like, and HD and all this stuff. You can be like, oh yeah, that's not him.
Man, I don't feel like I was like tuned in 100%, but it was like, from a distance back after,
There were a couple times when he rode a horse later that I was like, is that him riding a horse? But it is him riding the horse.
The horse stuff, did you read why?
Yeah.
Yeah, Conan
the Barbarian, man. He's a horse
but
rider.
I don't think apparently running downhill was a lot tougher. In the snow, even if that was fake snow with all the trees, you got to take care of Arnold, man. You got to take care of him.
He's your star.
Yeah, it was just a bad it didn't look like Arnold at all. But just wanted to mention that because this is the first instance of they're just gonna let that kind of shit slide, where it's almost like adds to the comedy of it.
So when I watched this movie when I was a kid, I thought this was straight up action with a little bit of comedy peppered in. And going back on it and watching it now in 2024, the year of our Lord, and like it does feel more parody. It does feel a little bit
Yeah.
more, because like you see the obvious, like, hey, we're ripping off James Bond to the highest extent.
It almost had like Hot Shots type moments.
Yeah.
Like it was making fun of itself.
And I hope that was his intent. I think that was his intention, because it was fun and it was funny as hell. Like,
and I think I agree with you now that it's the year of our Lord, the year of the llama. That our eyes are maybe a little bit more peeled for stuff like that. But to me, you didn't have to be paying too close of attention to catch like, oh, that's not Arnold Schwarzenegger running down that hill. But there were, like you said, there's later times that I did notice like, oh, that is him.
Yeah.
That's like, there was no getting out of that one. Kind of like the River Wild from last week, where it was like, there were shots in that movie where it was like, yeah, that was Meryl Streep. No wonder she almost died in this movie.
And I think that's in the notes too, that like Schwarzenegger almost died in this movie doing some stunt that he shouldn't have been doing. Yeah, I can't remember what scene it was in particular, but I do know that he almost got hurt. So,
man, can you imagine like just doing stunt, like being Tom Cruise in the 90s? Like you're so likely to die. Now there's laws. You got to get governors to sign paperwork and shit like that, to do some of the stuff he's doing now. But like back then, it was like, man, go climb that wall. Hopefully you don't die.
Yeah. Well, and Tom Cruise, they have to take such a, like, he has to put up the money himself in order for him to get hurt now. Like, he has to cover the insurance stuff and all that. So that doesn't happen.
And then I think it's gonna be good for this one just to mention some of the quotes along the way, because they're parts of the scene. Like they're so. It's not just the quote, it's what happens along with the quote. Mm-hmm. This is one of the, I feel like maybe this was the joke that the comedy writers that they fired left behind, where he's like, he gets to the bottom of the hill after running like a full sprint down a hill for a mile. And he gets to the bottom of the hill and he's like, hey guys. Hi guys.
Hi guys.
Hi guys. And then he gets to the window and he's like, lean back. And he shoots two guys on skis through the window, just blasting right by their ears. And then he's like, let's go. We can still make our flight.
And he
and really, that marks the end of the opening sequence.
Mm-hmm.
That's like, okay, all right, I see what I'm getting in. I see what I'm getting into here. Like, there are no limits to how fucking crazy this is about to get. Yeah,
this and in this movie, the only time you're not in that is when, you know, we come back to him after the scene and like we're setting up that he's a salesman and that his wife is a bored housewife and she looks all, you know, frumpy and like
my next note is shitty dad, hot wife.
You think she's hot in this scene? Because I think they did a very good job of making Jamie Lee Curtis look so much older than she is like at that time. She looks 50 some years old to me in that scene, like 50, 60 years old. Like, I'm not like a MILF guy, a mom's guy, you know, like, but there's something about the, like, they nailed the like innocent housewife, I guess. That is also not a thing, but it's like, it's the 90s vibe of just like innocent housewife and with the glasses. And, you know, like, I don't know that I've ever seen her in anything else that I've thought like, oh man, Jamie Lee Curtis is very attractive in this. But it was almost like, why did Hollywood not show how hot Jamie Lee Curtis was more? Yeah. She coming off of Halloween and Halloween 2, I think she was kind of pigeonholed in that whole like screen, like she was only good for scary movies. She did like Prom Night, and then she was, I think people knew she was. Here's my question for you. I want to know
Do you think the short hair was her choice or like?
Oh, it's 100% her choice.
Okay.
I'm pretty
So
sure
that's-
she has done that and has been on the record about like, yeah, the short hair is always like I just liked short
Okay.
hair.
That's fine with me. If I was gonna be mad if like they were pigeonholed into having that haircut for like the rest of her career.
She started that in the early 80s. Like she had short hair in Trading Places, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah,
She had short hair in Fish Called Wanda. Like, so she just pops up in good movies every once in a while, but she doesn't quite get the fame that you're talking about. Like
she's
that
so amazing in this movie. She's so attractive in this movie. Like we'll get to the
how old do you think she is in this movie?
Oh man, she gives me like early 30s vibes.
Okay. And even when
30,
she's got,
let me say 30, I'll say 35.
yeah, so she's 36 years old in this movie. Do you think she looks 36 years old in that opening scene with her?
Man, I agree with Spencer. Man, just like a mature Sigourney. Yeah.
I'm with it. And like, if I were doing a recasting during this time, Sigourney Weaver would be up there, and she works with James Cameron a lot too. So like, it would have made sense.
I like not to jump ahead, but like I love her. He's here. He has arrived.
Oh my gosh, Avery's here. I'm not gonna say Avery. It's Avery.
Avery. The Black Hawk is here. Man, I like her. It's crazy. I don't know that I've seen her without being like over with a lot of makeup and a lot of almost wardrobe, like the mid-range hair towards the end of the movie. I mean she's very pretty. She's very pretty, and she's.
I just think she looks and I know why they did it, obviously, but I think she looks 10 years older than that in that scene. Like I do not think she looks 36.
I think they did a good job of making her look that way, but man, there's something about this role that I'm like I said, I never have thought, oh man, Jamie Lee Curtis is so attractive, but
y'all need to go back and watch.
Seen this movie.
I was about to say, y'all need to go back and watch Trading Places or that movie with John Travolta. She did a movie with him, and even in Fish Called Wanda, she's a babe. She's always been a babe. She's still a babe. So much seed spilled.
He has arrived.
Jesus.
He has arrived.
So yeah, we get all these like interstitial scenes, but the next big scene we get is like that bathroom fight scene that leads to the rooftop scene. And
did you see that it was like a paragraph?
Oh yeah, that it was one page on the script.
And then they got there, and he was like, we need to do a lot more bullets and blood, and like just beefed it up to a very long scene.
It reminds me, and I don't know how many of the Mission Impossible movies you've seen, but the one Mission Impossible scene with Henry Cavill in it where they have a bathroom fight scene. It reminds me a ton of that, and I wonder if they used inspiration from True Lies for that. But I love that scene, that bathroom shootout. You got the old man on the toilet, like.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it is the classic question of like, why not go in three deep and just make sure you get him?
Yeah.
Why go in basically one at a time? They made it a very fair fight. They may be terrorists, but it was a very fair fight, one at a time.
And again, that leans into that like Bond movie. Yeah, where it's like, okay, we're not going to go in as a group and shoot this guy. We're going to go in.
Those three guys come out of that station wagon. You can have that video camera, pack of cigarettes. You can have all of that. They come in 3 deep on you, and you're done.
Yeah.
But they were like, all right, this guy's here. He's going to try. Now, it's funny. Anytime there's like a big fight sequence with Arnold, it's got to be like a more ripped guy. Because if it's a me-sized fella, he's just gonna get like thrown into the wall. So it's always like a buff dude.
I wish the pack of cigarettes thing would have come back again later in the movie. I felt like it just got introduced by Tom Arnold in the scene previous to this, and then you get it the one time. Like I wished it would have come back at some point, and it didn't.
Yeah,
I was a little
that
disappointed.
would have been a good little secret.
So.
But yeah, another little side note I have, not my favorite scene, but bad guy slaps fake boss. And that's when we're talking about like, that. That was probably, it wasn't my biggest, thrill of the movie, but it did surprise me when he came in and just was like, and smacked the shit out of her. I was like, oh, didn't see that coming.
Yeah.
Which, that makes for a great movie when you don't, you don't see stuff,
when you don't see stuff come. Oh, okay. That's not necessarily what we're talking about here. No, I love that whole bathroom sequence. It then leads to a chase scene where one guy is in a vehicle and then the other one is chasing him on a horse. And
man, the way we get there though is the best. One of the best parts about it is like they both just rip people off. Like the first guy just rips a guy off of a motorcycle and just hops on. And then Arnold rips a police officer off of a horse and just takes the horse. And that's when we get one of the crazier things I've ever seen in an action movie, for sure.
Yeah. Oh, and I love they both get in an elevator. He gets in an elevator with a horse. And they're riding up to the rooftop together, and the guy ramps with his motorcycle over to another building. Not believable, but obviously it's an action movie. But then Arnold's like, great idea. Here I come. I'm going to jump my horse over to the next one.
This horse.
And the whole time I'm just like, that's not possible. That's not possible.
We're back to the whole speed thing, right?
Yeah.
We're back to where it's like that. Yeah, that bus couldn't do that. I remember the speed argument of like Mythbusters being like, yeah, you can't do that with a bus that size.
But because it's an action movie, you're like, yeah, I'm fine with it. That horse cannot make that jump.
I bet with the right motorcycle going the right speed, you could make that jump.
Oh, I agree.
You could have the best horse. You could have A++, A1 horse. The fastest horse in the world. There's no way.
No.
There's no way that horse.
And I was in genuine fear, even though I knew what was going to happen. I was just like, please don't make that horse jump that.
But I feel like this is pre-Game of Thrones where, everything just wasn't flipped up on its head. Like, I feel like Game of Thrones really shuffled things around where it's like, is anybody and everybody going to die at any moment? But this is pre-Game of Thrones, so it's like, even if he does jump the horse and the horse doesn't stop like it did, he's making it,
Somebody said that he thinks the horse was working with the terrorists.
Oh, damn.
Well, that horse is a cop horse, so, can we trust it?
I kept thinking like the horse from Half-Baked. It was like peanut butter. I love horses. Let's see. Oh yeah, here we go.
We haven't gotten to that yet. We haven't gotten to quotes yet, so
just gotta let us get there, man. Come on.
Seabiscuit's Seabiscuit's not making it. So I'm sorry to all you horse fans out there. No horse is making that jump. I'm sorry. That is a city street that it is trying to jump.
There is no way.
No, there's no way.
Even like I'll give him that the motorcycle had to break the glass, so you got a little resistance. The glass is gone. I mean, I guess there are jumping horses.
There's no jumping horses for.
What about if you took some of those horses that jump? You could set up one of those hurdles right there, and maybe that would give him.
The only way a horse makes this jump is if an angel from Angels in the Outfield comes down and lifts it over to the pool on the other side. That's the only way it happens.
Cool.
Somebody said something about why didn't he just go down the elevator like instead of like when Arnold was going up, and like that would have been a pretty
cut
funny.
him off.
That would have been a pretty funny sequence. Like, just stop the elevator at one point.
I love the old people in the elevator with the horse, like just being. It's just like the guy on the toilet, while they're having the shootout. Oh God!
The horse
movie is happening around me.
The horse would have exploded on impact is a funny image to put in my mind. I know that's terrible, but like if the horse does make the jump, it's like I don't know if you've ever seen this movie, but Cabin in the Woods. There's a section where Chris Hemsworth makes a jump with a motorcycle and just hits a wall and just splat. That's what I imagine happens for there. So I know horses can jump, guys. That's not a question.
But not that far. They can't jump that far. Horses are about height. They jump high, but they don't jump far.
I couldn't trust anybody to make that jump. Even Neo would have trouble making that jump,
Yeah. That's true.
And the bad guy gets away, which we need.
Yeah.
And then we get into the weird section of this movie, which comes with like tons of great, funny stuff in it. It is so disjointed from the rest of this movie. I almost wish there was just like a separate movie for this part of it. But we get the introduction of Simon and what like Helen is doing with Simon.
We meet Simon. That's my next scene.
We
meet Simon, and then the thing that I have written, we get to meet Seaman Simon, and the first thing I have written down is, why doesn't he follow him the first time?
Oh yeah,
it's like he finds out his wife's going to meet up with a dude named Simon. And then he just almost like sadly walks in front of a bus.
He's sad. He loves it.
But think about the lengths he goes to for the rest of the movie. And
we're not there yet. We're not there yet.
No, we're not there.
Give me an hour and maybe.
Just think about the lengths he goes to please his wife for the rest of the movie. And he just decides not to follow her to Simon. Which that was almost my WTF moment of the movie. Is like, dude, follow her right now. I would do that. I'm not a spy. But if like I went to my wife's work and she was like, I'm gonna go meet up with Simon, I'd be like, I'm gonna be very sneaky. I'm gonna turn into a spy right now.
I agree with you. I will say there is a lot of shock in finding out some like news of somebody that you've been married to for probably at least 14 years, because I don't know how old I think their daughter is 14, but like at least 14 years you've been married, and then like that's a big shock to take on. So I can see, I get it, but yes, you're right. I'm a spy.
I turn into a spy in that moment.
Yeah. So we find out about Simon, and he finds out that he does end up finding Simon, finding out that he's a used car salesman that poses as a spy to lure women into sex, which is awful. But
yeah, man, and he takes it out on the dog. Like
that poor dog. They do not treat animals well in this movie.
The thing is like, I'm sorry that you think your wife is cheating on you, but that is a tiny dog for you to be yanking around like that. God, the paragraphs coming in hot. But yeah, that poor, whatever it's Peanut or whatever its name was, gets yanked around because of Simon. But they end up, tracking him down and finding out he's a used car salesman. And that's when you're like, I don't know if it hit you like it hit me. I was like, it's funny. Like, he's a spy pretending to be
a
salesman, and he's a salesman pretending to be a spy.
Yeah.
And that's why I think going in, despite I do not condone cheating with, I don't condone cheating or sleeping with married people, but going into the situation, I kind of liked Simon just because I think Bill Paxton was really great. Like it just how convinced he is of himself really got me.
Yeah, no, you're right, 100%. Bill Paxton is an obvious scene stealer in this movie. Like, just comes in firing on all cylinders. He's so funny, and everything that he says, even when he's faking being a spy, like the shit he comes up with in the moment, like to get Helen like hooked, is funny. And then like him confessing all of this stuff to Arnold, like willingly, as he's trying to get this guy to a sucker's born every minute, one's born every minute, where he's confessing all this stuff to Arnold is great.
I love that there's a little resistance, right? Like Arnold's, he's going in knowing this guy's like been hanging out with his wife, and he's asking his angle and stuff like that. And it seems like the way it was shot and the way it was pieced together, there's some time, like there's a little resistance, like, I'm not going to tell you first thing. And next thing you know, they're like eating hot dogs on the side of the car. And he's talking more about his angle. And he's like, we get some of the best quotes in the movie. We get, this trifecta of quotes once Arnold starts driving back to the dealership, which we can either say, I think probably maybe good.
We can say
really
right now.
I would argue it's some of the craziest dialogue that we will talk about this year in a movie is this trifecta of shit that Bill Paxton says in this movie.
Hey man, the vet gets him wet.
Vet gets him wet. That's even outside of that.
I know.
That's outside of the trifecta. Like he does such a good job of making you feel like he's a scummy slime ball, like he does. That mustache really, puts it over the top.
That's why I grew mine. Yeah. That's why I did the mustache when I did it, is to be more like Bill Paxton in this movie.
Oh man, you want to be like Simon, huh?
Mm-hmm. He's my hero.
Yeah.
The test driving of the car is the best part. Like, the vet gets him wet, and then like him just coming with that trifecta of just lines. Oh man, that I don't even understand really. I understand. Obviously, there's one in the middle that I was just like, what? Like, why?
Yeah, he says, and I quote,
"Yeah, I'll let you go."
But she could be so hot if she wanted to. She's like all these babes. You get their pilot lit, they could suck start a leaf blower. Followed by, and she's got the most incredible body too, and a pair of titties that make you want to stand up and beg for buttermilk.
I don't get that one.
Followed by ass like a 10-year-old boy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Alyssa's right. We had to pause the movie after he described this. I mean, everything that she said, like I was watching Alyssa, every time he said one new statement, her mouth just went lower, like her jaw just kept dropping lower and lower. The ass like a 10-year-old boy thing was just like, I was just like,
and I love that the movie,
Christ.
Then is like, that is the explosion for him, right? Where he hits him in his daydream, but then comes right back to, and dude's just laughing. Ass like a 10-year-old boy. Like it's the best thing he's ever said.
I mean,
it's like, man, I wish, I appreciate Mr. Blackhawk's warning about that line, but it would have been very interesting to go into this movie and hear that with no warning and be like, wait, rewind. What did he say? What I think he said?
Definitely not something I saw when I was watching the edited version of this movie as a child. So it was very shocking to me when I heard it. So yeah, it's pretty great.
Wild.
And like, I don't want to skim over Simon and Helen, because I think that is like one of the better parts. And like I have some of the other scenes in the middle there as like my what the fuck scenes or like my music moment or whatever it is. But like he ends up finding out all this information that basically like sets them up so that, you know, Simon gets exposed for who he is, and Helen, you know, gets, you know, kidnapped by her own husband, which is a problem.
So weird.
Very weird. Very weird.
So weird.
But it's such an interesting part of the, and like that's the moment of the movie that I remember the most. I remember the end of this movie. And I remember the Helen stuff in the middle of this movie. Those were the things that stuck out to me. Obviously, this, you know, the striptease scene with Jamie Lee Curtis stuck out. I was a boy.
I just feel like watching it as an adult for the first time, it really kind of like you said, it felt like two different things. It turns into this movie where he gets like, it's almost, you know, like it's something you're not supposed to be watching, where he's like interviewing her in this very strange way with his buddy beside him too. You know, like it's just in a really like an altered voice, like we're just coming across to her.
Answer the question.
Yeah, it's just, man, from the kidnapping to that, everything else that happens, it just gets like, you know, one step further into the, like, if you told me you were doing that to Alyssa, I'd be like, hey man, I think maybe
maybe you guys should talk about things instead of just like kidnapping.
Man, I don't think you should be kidnapping her, man.
Yeah. Somebody, does he not do it for you anymore? I want to point that out. Like, there were a couple times in this movie, I love Tom Arnold in this movie, and he says some things that I'm just like, bro, you can't ask those questions. Like, he talks about his daughter at one point. He talks about Jamie Lee Curtis at one point.
You know why she's stealing that money, right?
Yeah.
For an abortion.
Or
drugs.
You
or
know
drugs.
She's 14. Of course she's doing this. Like,
of course she's stealing money for an abortion or drugs.
Or drugs. Her parents are Madonna. Like, Jesus, you know she's not a virgin anymore, right? Like, Jesus, Tom Arnold. Yeah. So he comes into question a couple times in this, but that scene where there was a lot of like, and I saw it in my note or in the like notes and stuff, the scene where he is stripping, where Jamie Lee is stripping for Arnold, is like, a lot of people were like really weird about that scene and against that scene existing, but it's not so much the dancing scene that's the problem. It's the after the dancing scene when she's laying on the bed. And like he comes over to kiss her, and he thinks it's like this really romantic moment that a stranger is coming over to kiss her and like touch her, and he thinks it's romantic, and it's definitely not romantic at all.
Can I confess that I think the thing that made me most uncomfortable about the dancing was that it felt too real, right? Like in this movie, need her to go into like unexplainably good sexy dancer, and then we just move past it, right? Because it's a ridiculous action movie, and why question whether she can dance or not, right? But the fact that she's like clumsy and bumps her head and stuff like that makes it makes it too real. It makes it like, by the time he's rubbing that rose on her face, I'm with Alyssa. I'm like, man, this is not cool. This is not, like, the kidnapping was not cool, but this is like, wait, you've got somebody else's voice recorded to play at her. Like, that's not cool. Not cool.
Yeah. And
if you told me you were doing that shit, I'd be like, hey man, not cool.
Is it, like, obviously it's not great at all. Is it better if he doesn't reveal him? Like, if she just goes in, she does a dance for him, there is no laying on the bed thing, and like is accepted, like, is it better? Or because like what he's trying to do is fulfill that spy fantasy that she had with Simon. So like, is it better? Is there a better way to write this so it does work and that it is like, hey, I'm giving her something that she does want?
I think you just fucking, I mean, clearly, like,
or do you just come forward and say, I'm a spy, get naked
spoiler
for
alert,
me?
just tell her you're a fucking spy.
That's true. That's true. And maybe that's a better version of this, you know?
Yeah, you're gonna find out later. She's super into that. So
she ends up loving that stuff.
Yeah.
It is weird.
Better ways.
Or that you sell spy equipment. I don't know. The scene is iconic to me. Whenever I think of True Lies, I think of this scene. And right, I mean, obviously reason. I'm me. I'm me.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, the bed thing is definitely bad. In that, and it so much so, like, that's Ebert talks about it in his review back in '94. Like, he talks about this, like, this is a problem. This is a weird thing. And it takes away from the movie.
Guys that are super not cool towards ladies are gonna love this shit.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh
like,
yeah.
That's my reaction to it is like, oh man, I bet.
Do you remember when we kidnapped people in college?
Okay,
No.
and let me be clear. If you could just pull this up out of context and just show me Jamie Lee dancing like that, that's a different thing. But in the context of the movie, it made me feel, because I think Jamie Lee Curtis does such a good job of, and I think when it was discussed in the aftermath of the movie coming out, like, she was supposed to be naked at first.
Oh yeah.
And maybe in the dark, so it was going to be her silhouette. And then she threw out there, maybe I do it with lingerie on in the light, and like, it just sounds a little skeevy to me.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't like that. I don't think it just felt too real, man. It felt too much like a person who is not a dancer trying to dance and be sexy and being good at it for a second and then being clumsy and be like, it just, and by the time he was on top of her, I was like, divorce, man. Divorce is the answer. That's all that we don't need to go anywhere else with this. Just divorce his ass.
I'm ignoring that paragraph.
Just
and
these paragraphs are easy to ignore.
Like, I like the fact, and I think it's touched, and I feel like it's part of, like, and I'm not a woman, we all know this, but like, I feel like there is like a segment of that dance that is like empowering for a woman who's not seen as a sexual being by her husband, being in this and being like, no, I can fucking do this. I am sexy. I can be a spy. I can do that. And I see that part of it. I just wish they could have made it a lot better. And like, she worked at it. That's one of the, some of the notes I read is that Jamie Lee worked like hell to get her body to look the way it does. In this movie, and she's like, I'm going to show it off. This is
Arnold Schwarzenegger apparently took months of dancing lessons and was still terrible. So shout out Jamie Lee Curtis for working so hard and actually being successful, because she looked amazing.
Yeah, she looked great.
Yeah,
Jamie Lee worked this.
Exactly.
And then they just randomly get, kidnapped by the bad guys.
I love that though. The dynamic of her thinking it's her now, and so they're getting drug out of there.
Oh yeah.
Like, oh shit! I'll take care of this. When he's the actual spy, I love that dynamic.
I do think that the movie, like, while this is the climax of the movie and them having these big action sequences, whether they're in the Florida Keys or the bridge scene or the final like showdown with the Harrier jet and everything, like, I do feel like the movie loses a little steam after this part, like just a little bit, to where I was like, I was really in on the spy stuff, and I think that the middle part really, like, that's why it feels disjointed in this movie. It's like you took this other movie and put it in the middle of this action thriller, which I was really enjoying the comedy aspects of all that stuff. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that, to me, they do a good job of, in this lull that's coming up, hitting hitting it with one of the best comedy stabs of the whole movie. I'll give you, it wasn't like the biggest laugh. I don't think I put it down as the biggest laugh. But when the battery runs out at the end of that guy's speech, that was so good. Like, yeah, it slows down a hair for a minute, but to me, that was him like getting sweaty, like knowing the battery was about to run out. Like, please wrap it up. Like, I got a kick out of that scene for sure. Like,
I love
more than.
Yeah, that's funny. And then like the next scene where like he gives him the sodium, whatever pentothal or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And I love that next scene. He's like, "Oh, what? You're gonna kill me? How are you gonna do it?" And he's like, "Okay, here's how I'm gonna do it." And then goes on to do exactly all those things that he just said. I thought that scene.
I love the first question. I love when he's like, "Yeah, ask me a question I would normally lie about," and she's like, "Are we gonna die?" And he goes, "Yep." Yep.
Yep. Yeah, no, he was great. I like that scene. He breaks out there, the Florida Keys, and then they go on like a shooting spree. And
oh man, just goes into can't be shot again mode.
Oh, it's
like early in the movie, just from my knowledge of weapons from Call of Duty, we got a bunch of SMGs, which, you know, those are like rapid fire. Mm-hmm. And here at the end, now we've got like AK-47. So we've got like heavy assault rifles being fired at this man. Nobody can hit him. And he's got a pistol for a long time. And and then, man, we get some cool guy action during this part for sure.
We get a lot of good action in this. We also get that silly action sequence where Jamie Lee Curtis drops the machine gun and it just falls down the steps, killing every guy there. I think it's like 8 guys or something like that.
It's like 45 seconds long. That gun falling down the stairs in slow motion is like a 40-second part of the movie. Where I was just like, man, it felt Family Guy-ish, where it was like, is this gonna keep happening? And it did, but like before that, he does this double stab. Like he stabs 2 guys like cross-armed in the bellies, and then lifts up. He like pops a gun up from a board. Man, that was pretty awesome. That was pretty great. He's like, for a second, he's going crazy. Like the guy grabs his wife and he just domes it, like he just shoots him in the head and is like, "Next time, duck," and then makes out with her. Like for a second, man, it's back to the beginning again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it gets crazy again.
And they think that he's dead, but obviously we know he's not dead. And then Tia Carrere comes over and she gets Jamie Lee. Jamie Lee punches her. It's awesome. Kidnaps her.
He comes out like he gets a couple of guns and he comes out of the shed just like cross-armed and keeps his arm, like even once he's done, he's like got his arms crossed like this.
But you know, you did that when you were a kid. I did that when I was a kid with you got like Nerf guns or super soakers, anything like that. You always do the cross.
I also went up to the closest gas pump and lit the gas with the bullets and started spraying people with flames, you know, like he did.
It's pretty great.
I feel like you're getting all those dollars, you know, all those millions that were spent on this movie. You start to see why, because there's just so much going on.
And then it leads to an even bigger scene after the bridge scene, which I thought was great, and also didn't understand what was going on. And like one of my favorite parts is they're shooting at the bridge and they're like, "Shoot those things," and they're like, "Will the nukes go off?" And they're like,
No, negative.
I don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah. Oh, I forgot.
One of the best parts. That's just like these comedic stabs. That's like, I can't believe if they wanted us to take this serious all the way, that wouldn't have been in there.
Right.
Where he's like, no, negative. That won't detonate the missiles.
I don't know.
I
Yeah.
don't know how, like, and it's so fast too. You know, like I don't know that was maybe James Cameron knew how we were going to be receiving it now.
Yeah. Well, I think of a movie that's like an action comedy, or more action than comedy, like a Bad Boys or Bad Boys franchise. Like you have funny lines in that, but it takes itself so seriously on the action side of it. And this side, like I feel like there's it's 50-50 on this one.
Yeah,
It is action. It plays more like a Rush Hour than it does anything else.
Man, Rush Hour stealing one of my pairings.
Oh, my bad.
No, hey, I did it to you. We're even now. So cut it out.
Isn't True Lies in the same universe as Jingle All the Way? That's the sequel, I think, to this.
He's an equally shitty dad. So.
Yes. That's what Alyssa said too. She said he's a bad dad in that movie too, so it's the same character. Florida Keys,
Man,
we already did that.
When he's diving into the water and has perfect diving form when he's diving away from the rocket before the bridge scene, and the guy who shoots the rocket, the main bad guy, shoots the rocket at him, gives it such a Napoleon Dynamite, like, yes. Got him. Yes.
Nailed him.
Nailed him. God, I loved that.
Florida Keys, the bridge scene that we've been talking about. We see Jamie Lee Curtis kind of have her badass moment where she kicks the shit out of Tia Carrere in the limo and ultimately leads to their deaths. The limo drive, and you got him like from the helicopter holding on to Jamie Lee Curtis. That's a cool looking moment for all that, which leads into the big, and I know I'm downplaying that bridge scene, even though it is awesome looking to watch. And it's cool to know like
that limo at the perfect time, man. That was intense.
And like, I would love to know. And I know they did like miniatures and stuff. Like, it's amazing to me seeing how like cool that looks. That bridge sequence looks, and knowing
when she's hanging over, like he's got her and she's hanging over the water. I mean, I thought like for the time that looked great. You know, like apparently they used a really big old green screen. So
yeah.
It looked, man.
It looks
very
great.
Impressed.
Yeah,
very impressed.
And then I think it kind of like I was saying, this kind of after the bridge, it kind of loses its luster just a little bit. Like he's kidnapped Dana. The bad guys kidnapped Dana.
They make out in front of the blowing up island. They're like,
oh yeah,
blinded by this nuke. What? Let's make out.
They love each other.
Oh wait, they've got our daughter.
Yeah, we gotta go. We gotta do this. Yeah. And I'm gonna take this Harrier jet that I've definitely flown before, and that's another comedy moment. Is like he's like wrecking into all this shit.
Yeah.
And then
would have been allowed pre 9/11 for sure.
Yeah. Harrier jet's so cool. Like just the fact that they can just take off that way. But then leads to the bad guy showdown, and he gets launched into oblivion. On the missile or whatever. I remember that.
The original, I wonder if Donald Trump stole that from Arnold Schwarzenegger in True Lies.
What did he steal?
You're fired.
You fired.
You're fired.
He probably did. He's a big Schwarzenegger guy. Anything I know I skimmed over that just because we need to get through some of this stuff that we were talking about.
I love that they run into Simon again at the end.
Yes, that's
pee in his pants again as he's trying to run the same scam. That was cool. It was like, I want to see the True Lies sequel. I want to see the daughter, who's like, my parents always abandoned me at dinner because they went on their spy missions. Now I'm a spy of my own, but I'm a bad spy. I'm like Archer.
Duchess. Okay, I never usually ask this. What do you think's your favorite scene of this movie?
Ooh, that's a good question. Man, that opening sequence.
You like
gave
that?
Me like it just really gives those James Bond vibes. I really I like I think the best scene is Jamie Lee Curtis's monologue when they're interviewing her.
That's good. She's great in that. She's
You know, like when I heard that, I was like, I could have tried out with Theatron with that.
I would have loved to have seen that. You'd got in, hands
If
down.
I could go back in time, I would do it just for the bit.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that opening action scene's great. I think I like the bathroom chase, rooftop chase scene. I think that's probably my favorite.
The horse versus motorcycle.
Horse versus motorcycle. Yeah.
That's wild, man. And so much of that was practical, like stuntman or not. Like they were really running horses and a motorcycle through a mall. Or like a
not
plaza.
computer generated, not any of that stuff. So
wild.
Just impressive to see some of those things. All right, who is your favorite character, and is there a scene stealer? I think we both acknowledge that there is a scene stealer, but
gotta be Simon, man.
Simon is definitely
like
the scene stealer
because he's just so gross. He's gross, man. But you know, he also has, like, not to jump ahead, but I know we got a lot to cover. But he's also got my favorite music moment when they first show him cruising in that, I guess, Corvette.
Fort 59 Corvette,
that makes him wet. That gets him wet. They're playing "More Than a Woman" by the Bee Gees.
Yeah,
and he's like jamming to it in a way that only you could at that time. Which it always makes me think of Short Circuit as well when they're dancing. I just love that song. So when that came on, I was like, "Oop." Favorite music moment, because I just love that song. And even when he gets out of the car after it's cut off, it's still in his head. He's still rocking to it.
We need to get Johnny 5 on here.
Oh man, Short Circuit.
Do a special one just for Johnny 5.
Oh man, I've been wanting to watch through all the Jawses because they're all up now. So much to watch.
I do want to say my favorite character in this movie, though, but Simon's a scene stealer, but favorite character, I think Helen is great. She's funny with all of them. She's this is a great comedic performance throughout the whole movie. And in the parts when she doesn't need to be comedic, like you were saying with that monologue scene when she is angry and like, whatever, I'll do, like, I love my husband, all this stuff is, like, that's all.
Man, and the look in the face when she asked him how long he's been a spy, and he says 17 years. The look on her face is like, that was almost my like cry moment, because she just looked crushed by that. I mean, like, you've been lying to me for 17 years. That's insane. Ooh, man, she gave a great moment. I see why she won an award for this movie for sure, because she did so great. Yeah, no, and when she like bashing with the chair, badass, just badass. Yeah. All right, let's talk about our favorite quotes. We've already mentioned a few of them, but there's many more in here. We barely talked about Gibb in this movie at all, and he's got some of the best ones. So I'll let you go ahead. One of my favorite Gibbs is like when his daughters throws on the helmet and they walk in, and he's like, "Boy, I remember the first time I got shot out of a cannon." It's just like it's such a dumb joke, but it's very funny. Such a dumb like dad joke, but apparently they had him improvise that a bunch of times, and that's what they chose. And man, the way that landed on me, I wrote that down immediately, because I was like, that's only so funny, but what a nice little like comedy stab. Yes, it's I liked that scene, or that line as well. What about you? What kind of, again, another use of bitch in here, but what kind of sick bitch takes the ice cube trays out of the freezer when he's talking about his ex-wife taking the ice cube trays out of the freezer, which is something that Roseanne did to Tom Arnold in real life. Crazy, right? They have such an interesting relationship. Yeah. Apparently, while they were filming this, like, they wanted him to come back. Oh yeah, Roseanne too. They got divorced in the middle of Roseanne, and he kept coming back on the show because they loved him so much. So, another Simon one that I have. Harry says, "But what about their husbands?" And he goes, "Dickless." I mean, let's face it. If they took care of business, I'd be out of business. You know what I mean? Yeah, just line after line with Simon.
There's a Gib after. I feel like Gib has two of these lines after Harry finds out that that Helen is maybe sleeping around on him. He says, "So your life's in the crapper. So your wife's banging a used car salesman. It's humiliating. I know, but goddamn it, Harry, take it like a man."
Yeah. Man, that's so 90s, right? Take it like a man.
Take it like a man.
That's the should be the motto of the 90s. Take it like a man.
And he says a couple I have two more of his sections, and I'll let you go to your next one. He says, "Harry, I know it's got to be painful, but you got to admit it's pretty damn funny." I mean, if you were just some idiot, or if it was just some idiot and you'd be laughing your ass off. And then he also says, "Listen, Harry, Helen still loves you. You know she just wants to bang this guy for a while. You know it's nothing serious. You'll get used to it soon." And then that's when Harry slams him up against he's like, "Stop cheering me up." But man, Gib is just come on.
He also when they're talking about the abortion and whether she's a virgin or not. Harry goes, "She's 14 years old," and Gib goes, "Yeah, and her little hormones are going off like a car alarm."
Those were in my what the fuck moments. I was like, please stop talking to me about my 14-year-old daughter being a virgin, not being a virgin anymore. Yeah. Man,
peak Gib is when he goes, "Kids, 10 seconds of joy, 30 years of misery." Or when he when they're scaring Simon for the first time, and he's like, "Get lost, dipshit!" Boom, boom, boom.
Yes, he just shoots at his feet. That was incredible.
Man, another peak gross Simon that I had to write down, and it's not the best quote. And when he's like, "If not for me, Helen, do it for your country."
Jesus.
That's right before Ray
they get kidnapped.
Simon is but your country. Do it for your country.
Do it for your country.
Yeah.
I did want to include Helen's scene where she says, "It's just there's so much I want to do with this life, and it feels like I haven't done any of it. The sand is running out of the hourglass, and I want to look back and say, see, I did that. That was me. I was reckless, and I was wild, and I fucking did it." I love that section. It's out of this funny movie where you get all these crazy lines.
Beautiful monologue.
You get this beautiful monologue in the middle, and Helen she crushes it. Jamie Lee crushes it. So, what else you got?
Says, "Women can't live with them, can't kill them."
I think I've said that before, based on this movie.
I love when Arnold's he's on the horse chasing the motorcycle, and he's like, "Make it quick because my horse is getting tired." Oh, and then it's kind of like a fun fact / quote is you get to hear James Cameron in the movie from the helicopter.
Oh yeah.
And they think she's laying in his lap, and he's like, "Oh, she's definitely laying in his lap." Yahoo!
Yahoo!
That's James Cameron.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's so.
And then Gibbs goes, "Maybe she's sleepy." Oh god.
I think calling any of this dialogue in this movie beautiful is a bit of a stretch, but I get it's really just that moment. When she's having
monologue.
it's just that moment.
Take it out of context, even especially if you took it out of context of what her creepy ass husband interviewing her in an altered voice, just her being like, "I want to do something with my life." You could change the music and put that that vocal over the top, and people would be crying on Instagram.
It's just like a midlife manifesto. Yeah,
exactly,
for everybody. Any other quotes that I'm sure we've left out some. Any other quotes for you?
I think that's that covers most of it. I love that, man. I love Simon just being dickless. What about their husbands? Dickless.
All right, the biggest laugh, cry, scare, or thrill in this movie, if we had any. I think Simon is obviously like the biggest laugh. Like
The thing that caught me the most off guard, that made me genuinely laugh out loud, when he's like, "Give me the page," and breaks the car window.
Oh yeah,
that made me like laugh way harder than it, like, because I was in by that point.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm in for the like weird jokes and the, you know, like the comedy stabs. So by that point, when he's like, "Give me the page," boom, and he breaks the car window, I was in, man. It surprised me. It came out of nowhere, and I literally laughed out loud for that one.
Yeah. Any other parts of that? The laugh, cry, scare, thrill?
Nah. It was the biggest laugh for me this time around.
The only thing I wanted to mention, and it goes into like in notes later, sad notes later, but like knowing what I know about Dana and Eliza Dushku and everything about that, and like her having to do that scene at the end where she's hanging on everything, like obviously it's the most thrilling part of it, and like she has to like drop down into the Harrier jet and all this stuff, and like it makes it even scarier, I guess, that
fucking awful, man.
that the stunt coordinator is a dick. But yeah, that was the only thing I got. All right, what the fuck most ridiculous moments of this movie? I think we've covered a lot of them.
Trying to jump, like going for the horse jump.
Yeah, horse jump
that
is definitely on
anybody
there.
that wants to challenge me, you go ahead and get your average local police horse to the jumping track, and we'll myth bust this shit.
Yeah. We had somebody, I think your brother said that the longest horse jump is like 26 feet or something like that. So, which is impressive. That's an impressive jump. I still don't think he makes it.
I don't know. Like, I just see him like clipping the edge too, because they got to have all four.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like they can hang on.
Or do you jump off the horse, sacrifice the horse?
Oh, sacrifice.
And so. Yeah, you got to sacrifice that horse. I mean, none of the animals were treated good in this movie. The consent thing and
kids,
all of that is a definite what the fuck thing in this movie. And then Gibb being very open and talking about somebody else's child, I think is super ridiculous. But
yeah, weird.
Best music moment, you already kind of mentioned yours, The More Than a Woman. I'm going to give mine up to the Alone in the Dark by John Hyatt, which is Helen's dance scene. Like, she really gets into it. Once that, I've never heard of this guy in my life. He gets his moment of fame in this scene, but that Alone in the Dark song really gets it going. So
yeah.
All right. So I don't have a smash or pass. I don't have a fuck, marry, kill. I'm very sorry, because there's just not enough, women in this movie, or there's not enough characters that it would even be fun to do in this movie. Fun to do. Like, it'd be like Simon, Gibb, and somebody else, and I just didn't think it would be as fun. Even though Simon, Gibb, and somebody else would be kind of fun. Tia Carrere's in this, obviously, hottie. I think. And then Jamie Lee Curtis is in this movie, obviously a hottie in this movie too. I give it like a, which one do you prefer kind of thing.
Jamie Lee all day. Sorry to spoil it early on, because there's just, I think there's something about seeing Jamie Lee, so much of her career older and shorter hair, maybe arguably less feminine, and seeing her in this role. And like you said, I haven't seen Trading Places in a long time. But yeah, like, man, she was very attractive in this movie. Like, to me, in pretty much every mode that she was in, like, just kind of the like working housewife, with her short hair, with her long hair towards the end, with her slicked back hair and lingerie during the dance. She was just on fire, attractive in this movie in a way that, like, it would be like if you and not, I don't mean this as a stab, but like if you showed me something where Jodie Foster was hot or attractive, you know, like I just haven't really seen her in that role where she's an attractive young lady. So yeah, it was cool to see, because I feel like I've seen most of the Halloween movies for sure, and I've seen it, Everything Everywhere All at Once. She was awesome in that, but like it was cool to see young Jamie Lee Curtis in this. I really think that for me, by far, best performance. You know, like Bill's great in this. Like really nailed the bad guy. Really nailed the sleaze ball. And Arnold was Arnold for sure. Yeah. He was the jingle all the way dad after retiring from being a spy. So but yeah, it was really cool to see her. I don't know that I liked, if you're gonna be the female, the bad lady, I don't know that I like you getting slapped around by the guy. You know, the way, like, that really made her like way less threatening. Or I don't want to be around any ladies that are getting slapped around secretly, you know.
Well, I mean, I don't think that. I think that's just to prove that she wasn't the big bad, and that guy was the big bad. That's true. Like, she's the foil for Jamie Lee in this movie. Like, she is that is her fight.
In the 2022, whatever this is, the 2024, that she kills him. For all the slaps. For sure, man. Like, you got to get back. You can't just let anybody, man. Like,
I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying. I just think, you know, well, anyway, I'm talking about their attractiveness, not them getting smacked around or anything. I just want to
me out, so that takes away from it, is all I'm saying.
It's like, I mean, Meryl Streep didn't get slapped in River Wild, so you're right about that. But like, I've held a torch for Tia Carrere since Wayne's World. She's the swing girl. She's the dream weaver. Like, that whole section. Like, Tia Carrere after Wayne's World, I was just like, she's it. And like, to see that she said that she had such a good time on this movie, it's one of her favorite movies that she ever did. She got to play a villain role. It was fun. And it looked like she was, you know, having a good time with it. And her career kind of takes a nosedive after this. She doesn't get to be in very much after this. So good for her for, you know, being in this movie and being good at what she does, being a true villain for Jamie Lee Curtis, which I think is what they needed her to be. So I don't know. You've asked that question twice now, and I still don't know what you're talking about porn. So I'm very sorry about that. Google's your friend in this situation. Just type it in. Just type it in, man. Okay. Best performance overall.
I think Jamie Lee Curtis.
Jamie Lee, for me. Absolutely.
Really, based on that monologue, kind of like if you pull the best scene from the movie that's not comedy and kind of like you said, a really good chunk in the middle, then got to give it to her, as well as the dance. Like, I can only imagine how uncomfortable that must have been. So did it in a very believable, like, realistic way, because definitely tried to dance sexy a few times in my life, and I always bumped my head, you know.
You haven't pulled it off? You've never been that attractive?
I keep trying. I keep trying, man. I'll get there someday.
Who's more attractive? Jamie Lee Curtis in that dress with the slick back hair, or Abed in Community dressed up like Jamie Lee Curtis in this movie? Abed, sure. Hands down. Yeah. Hands down. If you haven't seen that episode, check that out. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, recast 1994, 2024. The only thing I put on my 94 one is, would Stallone be better in this?
Right, because there's a class, right? Like, it's either Stallone or Jean-Claude
Yeah.
Van Damme, like,
And Jean-Claude Van Damme can't do any of this.
it's got to be one of the Expendables, right?
Yes, it's got to be an expendable. You're right.
Recast one of the Expendables.
But I was just thinking, I was like, Stallone's got to be it. And like, I saw the Jodie Foster thing for Jamie Lee. I think she's too young. Jodie Foster is for this role at this point. And maybe they're the same age, but I just felt like she was a little too young at that point.
I kind of struggled with the recasting for the 94 because of it was like, okay, for Arnold, one of the Expendables.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of had already thought Jodie Foster because of the way the folder she is on my desktop in my brain is right there with Jamie Lee Curtis, and so for her to be in such a role where she was so attractive, it was surprising. And so I couldn't really think. I don't know. I'm not good enough with the ages to know who. So then I kind of just jumped to the 2024 recasting, and I don't know if he is one of the Expendables. Maybe just because I've never seen it. But like, is Terry Crews one of the Expendables?
I don't think so.
Man, I think I would love to see a Terry Crews version of True Lies.
He would be good.
With,
I mean, he's got the comedy part of it down.
With like Maya Rudolph.
Okay, I'm in.
As Jamie Lee Curtis. And just as a Brooklyn Nine-Nine shout out, Andy Samberg in Tom Arnold's role.
Okay. I like it.
Because I love their dynamic in Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Sure. Somebody, I think Avery here said recast Arnold with Tom Selleck in 94. I kind of like that. That's not bad. Yeah. Tom Selleck's got some good comedy chops too, and I think he could do it. He would look a little bit more like a Bond too than like an Arnold. Julia Roberts, I don't know. Like around this time, she would have been pretty great in this. She is a lot. I think she is like 10 years younger than Jamie Lee in this. So it would have been. Yeah. You got to think, how can I make this person look non-attractive for a little bit of the movie too?
Man, I think right, Maya Rudolph could like be sexy and funny. You know, way like that Jamie Lee Curtis, like she's always been hilarious to me, and she's also very attractive. So yeah, she came to mind, and man, Andy Samberg in Tom Arnold's role, like I just see him being kind of that funny voice in his ear for sure, easy.
So I thought maybe like John Cena could have been the Arnold role in 2024, and maybe Charlie Day as Gib.
Oh wow! Yeah, I love that.
I don't know anything about the Expendables, so sorry.
Yeah,
don't really care that much about it. Alyssa, I want to put hers out there. Suggested Anne Hathaway for the Helen role.
Okay.
She could do that. I said Michelle Williams, not Destiny's Child Michelle Williams, Dawson's Creek Michelle Williams as that role, because I've seen her in more of like a I don't know. She there's a couple movies of her where she's got like short brown hair and she kind of looks like a housewife, kind of like Jamie Lee does in this, and that's the only reason I like that. So, any other people from this to recast Jamie Lee Curtis with Annie from Misery? I can't even remember her name is Kathy Bates. Would be interesting, I guess.
Yeah.
What about Helen Hunt? Helen Hunt is not bad for Jamie Lee Curtis.
Yeah, she was my recast for last week for Meryl Streep's role.
Well, then next year in 95, she gets to be in a movie with Bill Paxton.
She's still around?
Yeah, she's still around. She's just older.
You just see a good old Helen Hunt film.
I think they did an All About You reunion like a couple of years ago, so she's been around. All right, let's talk about some fun facts. All right, I don't know if you got your. I don't know where you got your body count. I had two different numbers for body count from learning this. 109 was the body count I found on 2 websites, and then 90 was the body count that I found on another on IMDb. So,
I mean, both feel right. It was a lot. It was is this like this is the highest, right? For the year so
yes,
far.
yeah. This is among like, I think this is on a list somewhere of being like a pretty high body count for an action movie, which leads to it being taken not seriously. The more body count in something like this, it's like, oh, this is just for fun kind of thing.
I feel like the 90 versus the 103 are assuming that a lot of those guys shot in the opening sequence died, right? Like, I think maybe some of them could have escaped.
We're not, and when we talk about body count, we're not talking about we're talking about death count. Sorry, make that clear for Avery. Thank you for that Hispanic made joke about Arnold Schwarzenegger. What are some other facts that you had found during this?
I saw that Arnold Schwarzenegger, while he was running for office, said like, yeah, I was once in a movie called True Lies, which is what the Democratic Party should call their convention.
Jesus.
That
sounds like something that Donald Trump would say too. Jesus.
Yeah. One thing, the coolest thing that I saw is that they got those 3 Marine Harriers.
Mm-hmm.
And they're pilots for a fee of $100,736, which was $2,400 per hour.
Wow.
$2,400 an hour for those Harriers.
Jeez. They were cool though. It was cool to have a real Harrier in there.
Yeah. Did you see anything about Charlton Heston? Yeah. Did you see any fun facts?
The only one I put about him was that he was modeled after Nick Fury from Marvel Comics.
I also saw that he did. This is why you can't trust stuff off the internet. So I also saw that he showed up with pink eye. That's why they made him wear an eye patch. Yeah, it took 4 horses.
Because they could all each do different skills, right?
Different stuff.
One was a running horse. One was like a jumping horse. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you know about the James Cameron trademark?
No.
Yeah, I didn't. I read about this again from the internet. Could be complete horseshit. The dangling, swinging fluorescent light fixtures are like a trademark in all of his movies, and that's what happens in the bathroom. There's like a dangling, swinging,
swinging light,
long tube bulbs. I didn't know that was a thing in like all his movies, but apparently it is.
Well, now I'll look for it anytime I go back. What else? Anything good?
That's it, man. That's it.
Let's see. I got a couple things. So the broad panties worn by Helen were her actual ones that she brought on. So
available on eBay now.
Jamie Lee was like, "Hey, I know what's good looking," and she did all that. So she rehearsed that scene extensively with James Cameron, and that's where she thought she came up with the idea of falling in the middle of it and all that stuff. And Arnold Schwarzenegger was not told about that, and so his reaction is a true reaction whenever they do that. Let's see. James Cameron said that this was a love story first and foremost, which I can get on board with. Let's see. And then I do want to bring up, it's been kind of in the background, that Eliza Dushku revealed that when she's 12 in this movie, that the 36-year-old or stunt coordinator of this movie groomed her and took advantage of her along this movie, and came out with that in 2018. And that also, somebody confronted him about this on the set, and he rigged her up in a way that made her get hurt on set. So like anytime that this, like, yeah, so somebody found out like he was being too close with her, and then he got made her get hurt because
I read
like,
that she broke ribs because of it.
Yeah, really fucked up. Really fucked up.
That dude is not happy.
Yeah, same. But yeah, if you're a stunt coordinator, people's lives are in your hand, and he did not take care of her properly.
Especially as a child actor.
Yeah.
He trusted a lot of people.
He just, it's sad. Sad part of this great movie is learning that information. And then the stars of this movie have come out and like in support of her after that. So
man, it's kind of like y'all were talking about a few weeks ago with like Leon the Professional. It's like you find out this stuff in the aftermath that it just puts this dark cloud over a movie that's going to affect everything else we talk about. It's like before I read that, looking for fun facts, I would have a certain rating for rewatchability. But once you find something like that out, it's like, probably takes it down a notch, right? I was like, yeah, that gets brought to mind when watching it now. So, yeah.
It really takes that end scene and makes you sad about that end scene.
That
guy. Fuck that guy. Let's see. Anything else? I think we can end on that. But yeah. So I'll go ahead and skip to my next one. Like a Fine Wine and Dish. If you could pair this with another movie for a double feature, what would you choose? We've already stolen each other's
Rush
a little
Hour.
bit.
Yeah.
Rush Hour. Yeah, it's good. Mr. and Mrs. Smith, I think, is
Mr. and Mrs. Smith is like, to me, that's what felt like a sequel to this. Is like, okay, now that they're spies together, what happens?
Yeah. I also thought of the chemistry between them too. A movie that I like, and I know not a lot of people like, is a Tom Cruise movie with Cameron Diaz called Night and Day. It's another kind of spy movie that brings somebody that's not very good into this. Did you have any other movies? I have one more that I was going to say.
What you got?
The movie Nobody, which stars Better Call Saul guy in it. And he's like a family man, but he's actually like a secret spy kind of thing. It's pretty good. Pretty good movie. To see that guy fighting some people. So Bob Odenkirk, I always forget his name. So that one's pretty good.
Yeah.
All right. If you don't have a song or a book or anything that would go with this, do you?
Song or a book?
Nope. If not, that's okay. All right. If you had to give this movie a rewatchability rating out of 5, what would you give it?
Man, I was going to say normally a 4 until I got into the fun facts. I'd say that takes it down to a 3 for me, just because I still, this is one of those movies where if you were like, hey, I haven't seen that, I'd be like, this would be fun. This is a fun watch, man.
Yeah.
So it'd be like probably a 4 for sure if it wasn't for some of the fun facts. Also some of the like weirdness of the interview in the middle and him kidnapping his wife, and just we'll get into more maybe of the criticisms, but yeah, I think a solid 3 for me on rewatchability. Yeah. I'd watch it again. For sure.
I gave it a 5 just on the rewatchability. I mean, any one of the scenes that we named, if that's on, I'm down. I'm down on the couch. I'm watching this movie.
Yeah, you're right.
It's a fun ride. Like, and not saying that 3 is a bad score or anything, but 5, I was just like, yeah, I'll watch this movie anytime. Somebody's like, let's watch it tonight. Sure, I'll watch it. But my overall star rating is where I go down a little bit on it. So what about you? What was your overall star rating?
Just a 3 as well.
Yeah.
Just because I do think once you've seen it once, to me, the rewatchability relies a lot on me not knowing what I now know, as well as like if you've never seen it and you don't know that fact, then we'll definitely watch it.
Yeah.
But if it's not something that I need to see anytime soon. But if you haven't seen it, man, I'm down to watch it. So to me, it's right in the middle, right at a 3. Got to leave room for those special movies at a 4 and a 5.
Yeah, I gave it a 4. I know that's probably a little high for me, but I had a fun time. And
man,
I
think 3.5. I could be swayed to a 3.5
Yeah.
very easy if we were talking halfways.
I just thought I could go down to a 3.5 too with some of the facts that I know too, but like I just think of a 3 as like very kind of mid good movie, where like a 2.5 is just very middle of the road, obviously. But like I think this one's a little bit more special than a 3 to me. So like I had to go up.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's some big enough laughs that I could be, if we had to decide on it together, that I could be swayed to a 4 even, especially if you were like, well, consider that most people are not going to know that, when they watch the movie. Like I could go be like, hey, sister, to one of my sisters, like, you've never watched this? This is like a ridiculous action comedy movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger, and I feel like they know what they were getting into and would get kind of the laughs out of it that I would expect them to, because there's some really good comedy stabs in there for sure. I think that's one of the reasons. Like, I don't think is it like that in Rambo? It's been a long time.
No, it's not like that in Rambo at all.
I love I love some comedy relief for sure.
Yeah. That's what makes movies like Rush Hour so good, or Shanghai Nights, like those kind of movies so good.
Beverly Hills Cop.
Oh, but hey, everybody, I'll come to that. So, anyway, that's it. That's the end of that. We talked 2 hours on this movie, almost more time than it's even done. I'm at the end of the movie back here behind me. So we did it. We went two times, 2 hours. Stephen, thank you so much for watching this movie. I really appreciate it. I knew this was going to be a good one for you. Is there any movies that you've seen recently that you'd love to recommend, or any shows or anything, music, anything?
I could talk music for days, and I really haven't seen. I don't think I've watched many movies recently that maybe I haven't talked about before. I've been watching some cooking shows, cooking competitions. As silly as it may be, I really enjoyed Chow House on HBO Max.
Okay, Chow House. Yeah,
Chow House is a super cool Italian food competition. But yeah, other than that, just haven't seen a lot recently, besides what the weekly movies that I've been watching with you guys. So,
well, we're glad that you do that.
Nah.
I'm glad that you keep up with it.
Have you seen anything good?
I have. I've actually had a pretty good streak of seeing some good stuff recently. I have watched. We were talking about that Beverly Hills Cop vibe of this. The new one just came out on Netflix, and it's actually really, really good. Like,
really?
Beverly, yeah, I had a great time with it. I thought it was pretty funny. It gave me all the fan service that I had, from some nostalgia from the original ones, but it did feel fresh, and it was just a solid 80s action movie with Eddie Murphy having jokes. I thought it was solid. And for a Netflix movie, it was even better than I expected.
That makes me want to watch it, man. Now I'm excited to watch it.
Yeah. And I don't think it's amazing. It's not like even as good as True Lies, I'd say, but like it's definitely a fun Saturday afternoon watch, something like that. Let's see. Big Trouble in Little China I watched this week. Just a great action comedy, supernatural thing from the 80s with Kurt Russell. He's awesome. I watched Civil War earlier today. Yeah, and that was a tough watch.
As expected, right?
That's a hard watch, but it was really good. And then we're doing some movies, extra credit movies for 94, and they're just like the categories they tried, like went for big things and didn't really do well with it. I watched a Western called Bad Girls, has Drew Barrymore in it and some other actresses of that time. Drew Barrymore is probably the most famous one in it. It's not great at all. So that's what I have watched this week and will recommend. So,
man, I did watch that movie If with Ryan Reynolds.
Oh yeah, how was it?
It's pretty good.
Just okay.
Yeah, it's like I feel like anytime we get to this, I always want to be like, "This was really good," but you know, sometimes the things you watch are not. Awesome.
They're not all winners. They're not all winners, man.
You always remind me of that. So,
well, again, thank you, Stephen, for doing this with us. Next week, we are moving into a new category. We're doing it's famous directors, and these famous directors did not have like Oscar-winning movies this year, but they're recognizable names. You're going to see movies from the Coen brothers, from Spike Lee, Ron Howard. I can't remember what the other one is, but next week we're going to be doing the Coen brothers movie, The Hudsucker Proxy. I do believe it is streaming currently on Netflix, so do check that out whenever you can. And we'll be here next Sunday at 5 p.m. talking about that. So join us next week on 52/1994. We'll see you then.